Okay, folks, it's time to talk about something I genuinely hate talking about, something that I have tried to avoid talking about over time. That is the fact that NBA ratings are down. Oh my God, slightly. What are we going to do? NBA ratings are in the toilet. This means I can't enjoy the sport anymore because everyone talks about how no one's watching it anymore. Today, we're going to talk about some of the reasons why. I was genuinely curious because everyone always talks about, I'm not watching anymore. I don't want to watch anymore. And they never really say why. So I tweeted out a few hours ago, if you stopped watching the NBA, give me the honest reason why and don't lie to yourself. What's the genuine reason? And this has gotten nearly 2,000 replies as the time I'm recording this. So we have a good amount of anecdotal evidence to go off of in this video. And sure, it is anecdotal, but when there's enough anecdotes, it starts to turn into some real research here. We're really hitting, we're really doing Lord's work here. Adam Silver, if you just contact me. I got the stuff. I got my contact information down in the bio, okay? So in this video, we're going to go over some of the facts that, yes, the NBA ratings are down. We're going to go over some of the reasons that people give for why the ratings are down that I think are complete and total bullshit. Like, they don't play defense. They don't try. Everyone plays the same. I think those are total bullshit, nonsensical answers that are not true whatsoever. But then we're going to get into some of the real reasons why people are tuning out of the NBA. And there are some real reasons that the NBA should address. Before we get started, one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. God, can we get to 1 billion subs by Christmas? Guys, I keep asking. 1 billion's not a lot. Can we get there before Christmas? But also, too, I want to say, personally, I don't give a fuck about the ratings, okay? I love the NBA. I have really enjoyed this NBA season so far. I really have. I think the talent across the league is better than it has ever been. I think there are so many great storylines, and we'll get into that later. Maybe those storylines aren't being taken advantage of by the NBA, but there's some great storylines. There's so many great players who are just a joy to watch, so many great teams, and so many differing play styles, despite what people say. There's plenty of teams that play completely different from one another, and I do think the intensity has been great. Again, I've really enjoyed the league so far this season. I want to preface this by saying that. But we have to start by acknowledging, yes, NBA ratings are down, and they're down a significant enough number that I would say that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. Adam Silver tries to write it off as, well, there was the election this year, and that people were focusing more on that, and that could be part of the reason why ratings are down a little bit. The World Series this year was loaded. I mean, Dodgers, Yankees, it's hard to get bigger than that. Shohei Ohtani against Anthony Volpe. Who wants anything more than that? That's true and all. But we're past all of that stuff now, and ratings are still down. Here's a tweet from earlier in the season. NBA ratings down 3% on TNT, down 28% on ESPN through November 14th. Those are, decently sized numbers, but what that stat tells me more than anything is ESPN fucking sucks. I mean, it reeks, and it does. And trust me, we're going to get to that later. But you also have some numbers that show that NBA Cup games have seen a decrease in viewership, and the idea behind these games was to increase viewership, and they have done that. Like, these games perform pretty well compared to just your regular season games. And some interesting stats about this is in local markets, these games actually do really well, the in-season tournament games. So it has piqued interest, and I think that has been a win for Adam Silver. But the fact still remains that these numbers are dipping. Look, I'd be a little bit more concerned about some of this stuff long-term if I felt as though interest in basketball as a sport was waning, but that's just not the case, really. If we look at Project Play's youth participation numbers by sport, basketball still does incredibly well. It's the most participated in sport in the United States for kids 6 through 12 and through kids 12 through 17. It is the most participated in sport. And you can't tell me interest in basketball is down when the WNBA is doing gangbusters. I mean, they had by far their best season in the history of their league this past year. They surpassed the NBA at times with some of their viewership numbers. The women's college basketball final had 18 million viewers. I mean, that is a gigantic number. That was more than the men's college basketball final. That was more than most NBA finals games from this past year. The men's basketball gold medal game this past Olympics was the second most viewed gold medal game ever. So in some ways, I'd argue our interest in basketball has never been higher. Just look at the online engagement numbers for the NBA. No other major sports league in the United States does better online than the National Basketball Association. Not even the NFL. Yet the NFL gets 10 to 20 times the viewership numbers. What the fuck is going on? And we're going to get into some of the reasons people have for why ratings might be down, some of the terrible, nonsensical reasons, and some of the real reasons. But first, a message from FanDuel. At FanDuel, if you spend $150 on a bet, we will give you a free $5 play. What the fuck is this? When have we had a FanDuel sponsorship? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who put that in the script. We don't use FanDuel. That's not what we use. What? Huh? We use Prize Picks, where if you use code Slightly Biased, we will match your first 16-leg parlay with a 16-leg parlay of our own. And if you win, you get hey, cut. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the confusion. All right, we don't have a sponsorship with Prize Picks or FanDuel. Okay, they couldn't pay us enough money. All right, that's not what we do here. Okay, what is happening? So I'm sorry for the confusion. You guys get back to work. Okay, but we are brought to you by ESPN Bet. At ESPN Bet, when you take out a second mortgage on your house, we will give you a free $10 play. And if you haven't yourself or gone bankrupt in 6 months, you will get a free $5 to put down on your favorite player. If you bet over under rebounds and over under assists, stop everything that you're doing. Yes, it's me, king of the slightly verse. So, look, we're trying to experiment some things. We're trying to test out some stuff. We thought we could start our gambling arc, but it's just not there yet, right? They can't pay us enough money. But also there's an ethics thing and a moral compass thing involved that we don't feel good about. All right, so we're looking for more ethical sponsors, and we think we have a more ethical sponsor now. From here on out, we will be sponsored by Raytheon. Okay, so go ahead and promote some Raytheon stuff. That's more ethical? Raytheon? Huh. We just thought it was a better option for us. Raytheon is more ethical than sports gambling? Yes, believe it or not, that's true. But drones? I don't... Believe it or not, it's true. As you could probably guess, I do think gambling is a pretty big reason why some people have tuned out of the sport entirely, and just sports in general, because, how many times can I see Kevin Hart talk about his dog shit parlay? How many times is it possible to see it? Let's start with some of these anecdotal reasons that I think either the NBA has no control over or are just stupid, nonsensical reasons, and you're just looking for an excuse. One of the most common responses I got was just that, I'm just busy, man. I'm busy. I can't watch the sport anymore. And I think for a lot of people, especially online, this is probably the case. They've graduated from school. They've just gotten older. They've started a family. They've gotten a job that requires more of their attention. And they just don't have the energy nor the time to keep up with an 82-game regular season. And since that's the case, you can't keep up with your team regionally. You lose interest in the nationally televised games as well. It makes sense that you tune out. Anecdotally, this was me with baseball. I used to be a ginormous MLB fan. I watched all of the time. I can't say I watched every single game, every single Texas Rangers game, but I watched a lot of them. And then, the further away I got from playing the sport, the more busy I got, the less attention I focused on the MLB. And then once you know it, I don't really pay attention to it at all anymore. That's just how it goes. There's no reason why in the sport that it's happened. There's no rule change or style of play change. I just don't have the time anymore. These are some of the funnier ones. I got a job. Congratulations. Congrats. Welcome to the workforce. But I love the responses. They're like, I got a job. Like, once you get a job, you can't watch sports anymore. I went to college and got a job. LOL. The LOLs are always so pointed. Like, there's always so much behind just a simple LOL. And I went and looked through this thread, and once you know it, no, FR. If you're 18 plus and still invested in hoops like that, you need a life, I fear. I'm unk. I am officially unk. It took me a while to understand what the fuck this guy was saying. But then I thought, there's no way this person is older than 20 years old. And once you know it, 19 years old in the bio. Guys, just because you graduated high school and got a job at the department store down the street, that's not the reason why people are tuning out of the NBA. Okay, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but jobs have existed for as long as human civilization has existed. When we were hunters and gatherers, it was somebody's job to hunt and somebody's job to gather. That's not why people are tuned out of the NBA. All right? People have had jobs. A lot of them. How about this reason right here? The squeaking is beyond annoying. They need to do some engineering to the floor or the shoes. They got racial and political. Don't love supporting them and don't want that crap when I'm trying to escape all the new stuff. They did best when they remembered that Republicans buy sneakers too. This was actually a pretty common one, that the league went woke. How did they go woke exactly? I'm not really sure. Is it because in 2020 they said racism is bad? Like, was that the reasoning? 82 games a year, a lot of meaningless games, too many injuries make players not available. Suns aren't local for me. So the 82 game schedule, and you see this all the time when people talk about why ratings are down. The schedule is too long. 82 games, it's just meaningless, right? And I do think that's a reason why a lot of people don't watch every single game, is because if you miss tonight's game, you can always tune in a couple nights from now. And sure, when there's so many games on a schedule, it's tough to find real meaning in just a single game in the middle of December, right? But the NBA has had an 82 game schedule since 1967. Like, I struggle to think this is the reason why all of a sudden people realize, wait a second, they play 82 fucking games a year? Oh my God, I'm not watching this shit. I struggle to think that's the reason why. And then you have some of the other basic ones, like teams bomb away from three now. Is this really a reason you're not watching? Like, let's be honest. Is this seriously a reason you're not watching? Sure, teams shoot more threes than they ever have, but they've also eliminated long mid-range jumpers, which was a shot that people shot all the time in the mid to late 2000s. Is that what you want to bring back? That shit fucking sucked. I don't know if you watched, but that shit was not as fun as you make it out to be. Sure, teams shoot more threes than ever before, but I struggle to believe that this is a real reason why a large portion of people aren't watching the NBA anymore. I mean, maybe some. Like, whenever I played basketball in school, middle school, our 7th grade team, our coach did not let us shoot threes. First game of the season, I'm at the top of the key waiting for a play. I'm by myself. I shoot and make a three. I get benched for the rest of the game. I guarantee you that coach is not watching the NBA. I promise you he's not. But is that why you're not watching it? I mean, let's be serious. I struggle to believe that. And then it's also reasons like these that I don't agree with at all. The competitiveness of regular season has never mattered less. It's a common trope that these guys don't try. Nobody tries anymore. I feel like people who are watching regularly aren't saying this. I feel like this is national media narrative that has caught on, and now people who don't really watch the sport see those narratives and think, oh, that's the reason why I don't watch this, because they don't compete. I mean, go and watch that Rockets and Warriors game from a few nights ago. That game was fucking crazy. That felt like a playoff game. Watch the Bucks Magic game. That had a playoff atmosphere. That felt intense. That felt like a playoff matchup. The Cavs Celtics game from earlier in the season. These teams play hard on a nightly basis. I think this is the shittiest reason. Are there nights where some teams don't have it? Are there some teams that are so trash and terrible that their effort levels wane? Sure, but this has literally always been the case. This has always been the case. There's always going to be the dregs of the league that look like they're not trying, because some of them might not be trying, but also they just fucking suck. And then you also have very old grandpa teams like the Lakers. They're grandpas. Teams filled with grandpas always have waning effort levels. This has been a thing that's always existed. I think it's a horrible cop-out answer. But let's get to some of the good anecdotal reasons and some of the reasons why I do think NBA ratings are down and how the NBA can fix it. Let's start here. Broadcasters catering to DraftKings. Refs catering to DraftKings. I don't know if I agree with that. But I do think them continuously hammering us over the head with this sports gambling shit is beyond annoying. And if I were already not that interested in the NBA or already considering turning the game off, and Kenny Smith pops up on the fucking screen telling me why I should take Domantas Sabonis over on rebounds in the second quarter, I might just turn that shit off. It's beyond annoying. It's predatory. I have very big issues with the way that sports gambling is in this country and the way that it's advertised. That's probably a video for a different day. But it absolutely sucks to see everything marketed towards sports gambling now. It sucks that 50% or more of the ads during commercial breaks are horrible sports gambling ads where they're like, you win! Everybody wins here at DraftKings. Really? Because if everybody wins, then you lose. So how the fuck does that add up? Because it doesn't add up. It's only a matter of time before sports gambling is regulated to all hell. 20 years from now, we're going to look back at this time period and how sports gambling was advertised, and we will be sick. We will be thinking to ourselves, how the fuck did that happen? It's going to be very much like cigarettes, where it might be legal, but you can't really talk about it. I found this one interesting. I emailed the NBA 10 to 15 years ago. The NBA finals are not accessible to kids. They completely stopped getting kids involved for games, especially the finals. At one point, games were Tuesday, Thursday, 9 p.m. Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They took the short-term money and gave up on long-term viewers. So I wanted to look at this because this past NBA Finals, obviously my Dallas Mavericks were included. Don't look at the final scores of those games, but my Dallas Mavericks were included and the Boston Celtics were included. An East Coast team and a Central Standard Time team. And the start time for every single one of those games was 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you know the way the NBA works is the games are starting 20 minutes after their scheduled tip-off time. So it was close to 9 p.m. on the East Coast before these games started. What the fuck is the reasoning for that? Why are you catering so hard to the West Coast? Can you not start games at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time? Just tell West Coasters, hey, get home early from work. Sorry, we're not catering everything to you. This one right here is far and away one of the biggest gripes I have with the league because it makes no sense and if it just feels like a slap in the face to your viewer. Games not starting on time, players being theatrical in terms of flopping. All right, I don't care about the rest of the stuff. Let's start with just the first 5 words of this. Games not starting on time. Guys, I was watching the NBA Cup game. Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. It had an 8:30 scheduled start time. It did not tip off until 3 minutes past 8:50. We were 23 minutes late on the start time. What the fuck is that? I don't understand why the NBA does that. And another thing that's annoying about it, it's very inconsistent. You have no idea if games are going to start 10, 15, 20 minutes later than their scheduled tip-off, or if they're going to start right on time. It makes no sense. Why can't you just start on scheduled tip? It's so annoying. Just start when you say it's going to start. And you know what? If you want to do hey, the game starts at 7:30, but it really starts at 7:39, just fucking put 7:39. The MLB does it. The MLB has first pitches that are scheduled at 7:07. Just schedule it when it's going to start, please. Of course, as you can imagine, a ton of the replies and responses were that officiating is terrible and officiating is terrible and officiating is terrible. Everybody's always going to have a problem with officiating in every sport. It's impossible for officiating to be perfect. We yet to have the technology where you can just implement AI robot officials who get the right call every single time. Letter of the law, that's a foul, that's a violation or whatever. And by the way, I'm telling you right now, everyone would fucking hate that. That would be terrible. That would suck so badly. if that was something that was actually implemented. But I just think it's natural to think officiating is terrible. I really don't think that's the case. I mean, you're always going to have a gripe with officials. There's always going to be calls that you don't like. But I just want to point out something here. If you just compare some stats across decades, in the 2020s, there's been 22.5 free throw attempts per game. That is the lowest in any decade since the 1980s. 19.9 fouls per game. That is also the lowest in any decade since the 1980s. So I'm not so sure if that's true. I mean, guys, we're not even 20 years removed from there being a real ref scandal where there was an official in the NBA who was caught fixing games. Like, that is something that happened not even 20 years ago. So a lot of talk about officiating. I think officiating is honestly in a fine place. Like, I think they do a pretty good job. Of course, there's always going to be calls that we don't like, and there's always going to be, we feel like there's some biases towards our favorite teams because that's just the way that we operate. I don't think that is true. You're always going to get responses like this. The games take too long. There's way too many commercial breaks. And I do think it's true. I think they need to cut down the stoppages. And I think it's even worse for us as viewers because we just watched the Olympics, a big FIBA competition. If you watch any FIBA competition at all, you know how well those games flow. You have the running clock. There's barely any stoppages. It has a really good pace and flow to the game from a viewer's perspective. And the NBA is not that. I mean, there's so many stoppages, so many reviews, so many commercial timeouts. And this leads me to another point I saw a ton of in these replies was that the end of games take forever. This is one of my biggest gripes with the league, and it's something the league absolutely has to fix. My good friend Vengeance Wood makes this point. It's such a good point that you look across every other professional sports, the last inning in a close baseball game is the best part of the game. The final drive of a close football game is the best part of the game. The ending of a great hockey game is the best part of the game. I'll take your word for that because I don't watch hockey, so I'm just going to assume you're correct. The ending of a great NBA game theoretically should be the best out of all of them. Why? Because naturally, your best player is going to have the basketball in his hands, and he's going to be guarded by the other team's best defender. I mean, it's one-on-one to the highest degree, and it's incredible to watch, except it's so constantly fucked by just horrible pacing and horrible flow, and it's terrible to watch because there's constant stoppages for timeouts, constant stoppages for reviews, constant stoppages for intentional fouls and free throws. It has to be fixed. For example, the last 2 minutes of the Magic and Bucks in-season tournament game from a few nights ago, the last 2 minutes took 20 minutes and 11 seconds of real time. That shit is ridiculous, man. You have to cut it out. And I think this is only going to get worse as analytics have shown that it is smart for teams that are ahead by multiple possessions to just intentionally foul to take away the threat of a team just raining threes and getting themselves back in the game. You're going to see more intentionally fouling from teams that are up. Fuck, I'm a Mavericks fan. Last year, the Dallas Mavericks intentionally fouled Zion Williamson in a game against the Pelicans when they were up 2. Late in the game. I think you're going to start to see more of that. Easy solution, obviously. You take away intentionally fouling when you're up. It's either free throws and the ball. That way we get to see what we want to see as fans, which is these incredible end-of-game situations where teams are coming back. That's what we want to see. Remember, at the end of the day, this is an entertainment industry. It matters what we want to see as fans. It might not be fair. It might not, well, we used to do this. It doesn't matter. This is what we want to view. Another solution I have, each team gets 2 full timeouts in the last 3 minutes of a game. I think that's much better than college basketball, and these teams have 5 fucking timeouts, so there's a timeout every 5 seconds. But, the WNBA has a reset timeout. I wouldn't mind getting rid of one of the full timeouts these teams have and replace it with a reset timeout. What is a reset timeout, if you're wondering? It's basically the same thing as a timeout, except there's no huddling. So you can make substitutions, you advance the ball, and that's it. You don't go to the benches and huddle for a team meeting. There really is no excuse for the end of basketball games to not be the best viewing experience in sports. No excuse whatsoever. And to be honest with you, I think I've landed on not being a fan of the Elam ending just because of how many great moments there are with buzzer-beating shots. But, we want the flow of the game to be better at the end. And then to close this off, in my opinion, the 3 biggest reasons why NBA ratings are down, and they're 3 reasons that I think are pretty easily fixable for the league. Honestly, if they put real effort into it. 1, these national broadcasts fucking suck. I mean, they are absolutely terrible. I want to go back to one of the stats I showed earlier about the ratings being down. You notice how bad the ESPN ratings are compared to the TNT ratings? I have big problems with the TNT broadcast as well, but the ESPN broadcast is a joke. It is a terrible, terrible viewing experience. And I do not think that it's a coincidence that their ratings took a much bigger hit than TNT's. Their pregame show is a monstrosity. Their halftime show is a fucking joke. I mean, it's 15 minutes. There's maybe 30 seconds of analysis on the halftime show, and it's some of the worst analysis you've ever heard. And on top of that, their in-game broadcasting crews are awful. I mean, they're absolutely terrible for the most part. There's a few exceptions here and there, But by and large, it is a tough viewing experience. ESPN has just gotten way too high on their own supply. They think people are tuned in for them. They think people are tuned in for their on-air personalities. People are tuned in to watch the fucking games. And on top of that, they do a terrible job. They hold broadcasting rights for the NBA. They have how many nationally televised games a week? It should be their top priority to ensure that people are tuning into these games. How do you do that? By building up hype for these games. Talk about the players that you're about to show on your channel. Talk about the teams you're about to show on your channel. They do such a terrible job of covering the NBA. They treat it like it's a joke. They talk about 3 to 4 players, maybe max. And on top of that, most of that coverage is negative. Most of their coverage surrounding the sport is completely and totally negative. And I do think it factors into how people view the sport. And I do think it's leading to people not wanting to tune in. Like, it's the dumbest shit in the world. Let's spend 30 minutes talking about how bad the league is. This team sucks. This player sucks. This team is terrible. They need to do X, Y. They need to trade the. Hey, but tune in tonight. Tune in tonight at 7:30 p.m. whenever they play. If I'm a viewer, I'm like, why the fuck would I want to watch that? Adam Silver, swing your dick a little bit. Be a man. All right? Tell these broadcasting companies they're going to talk about your league right, or they're not going to talk about it at all. Like, even on TNT, and I've had some problems with the way Inside the NBA has been lately. I think it's reaching its end point, and it probably needs to end soon, if I'm being brutally honest. But, like, your main headline on that show, Shaq, was on a podcast a few days ago saying the NBA fucking sucked. Like, he just straight up said, the league sucks right now. It's a horrible product. That is the headline of your biggest show talking about the sport. I hate that shit, man. I really do. And then the two biggest reasons for me, and this is a reason that I don't think enough people are paying enough attention to, that's just that people cannot watch games. We all saw this huge shit show that happened with Bally Sports over the past couple of years. So many teams lost their RSN and just had to pull something out of their ass for over-the-air options, and that has led to a ton of fan bases not being able to watch, either A, not being able to watch their team, or having to jump through hoops and fucking ladders just to be able to watch. Just off the top of my head, the Chicago Bulls, the Portland Trailblazers, the Denver Nuggets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Dallas Mavericks. These are just teams off the top of my head that I know you have to pay an extra subscription for just to watch their games. So, for example, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. They did away with Bally Sports this past year, okay? And I believe even last year when they were on Bally Sports, you couldn't watch it on YouTube TV. So if I want to watch the Mavericks, and I want to watch other teams across the NBA, and I want to watch the nationally televised games, I now need 3 separate subscriptions just to do that. I need a $20 a month subscription to Mavs TV so I can watch Dallas Mavericks games. Either that or I get an antenna. But if I get an antenna, I have no DVR thing. I can't rewatch the games if I wanted to, if I missed it and want to go back and watch it. If I want to watch other teams across the league, I got to pay, $20 a month for League Pass. And then if I want to watch the ESPN TNT games, I have to pay $60, $70 a month for a YouTube TV package. And I think just naturally, if you take away people's ability to view their regional team and you force them to pay 2 to 3 different subscription services just to watch the NBA, they're going to lose interest in the league. If I can't watch my own local team without paying $20 a month, why the fuck would I watch other teams across the league? And if I am paying $20 a month to watch, my local team, I'm not paying $20 a month to watch other teams. Keep in mind, the NBA skews young. It is the youngest fan base across all major American sports. Guess what? Young people are broke, Adam Silver. They can't afford it. We can't afford 3 subscriptions. Do you know that? We can't afford it, buddy. And I do think there's some promise here with the TV deal coming into place next season. And keep in mind, we're talking about the ratings being down and all of this. They just signed an 11-year, $76 billion TV deal this past summer. So I think the NBA is doing just fine financially, but it does sound like the NBA wants to implement its own national streaming RSN. That way you can watch all the games in one place. It has to happen. This shit is too complex, and I actually think it's the far and away the second biggest. I mean, the 2 biggest reasons I think right now for NBA ratings are like far and away everything else, in my opinion, and this is one of them. I mean, this is a huge problem for the league currently, and I don't think some people realize how bad it is. How many fan bases there are that have to get separate memberships or subscriptions or antennas to watch their team play. Antennas, man. Some of these people are 20. Some of these people don't even know what a fucking antenna is. I'm in my late 20s. Yes, I'm still in my 20s. Don't even joke. Okay, I'm in my late 20s. I have friends who are like, dude, I've never I don't know how to use an antenna. You know how crazy that shit is? And closing it out with what I think is the biggest reason. We can talk about the changes in the game, officiating, all of this different stuff. The reality is there's always been problems with officiating. People have always had problems with the way the game is played. The thing is right now, for the casual fan, keep in mind, I'm talking about casual fans. The person who's going to sit down on their couch on a Friday night, like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll tune into the NBA tonight. There's just not enough interesting storylines currently. And that's not to say that there aren't storylines in the NBA, interesting storylines in the NBA, because there are. There are plenty of them. The problem is the national media just hasn't hasn't recognized that yet, or has done a terrible job at telling the casual NBA fan at large that, hey, this team's really fucking cool. Hey, this player's doing a really good job this season. There's so many great teams across the league, so many interesting storylines. And the national media has just done such a piss poor job of relaying this message to the average viewer. Hey, listen, here's the reality. They don't care what I think. And if you're watching this channel, if you're watching a small to medium-sized NBA content creator, the chances are they don't care about what you think either, because you're going to watch no matter what. But the NBA, in a lot of ways, is like a soap opera. People love the storylines. People loved when LeBron went to the Heat. Everyone hated it, but fuck, they watched. Everyone hated the Kevin Durant Warriors, but damn it, they watched. The casual fan fucking loved it. And I do think it's a shame. Like, for example, the Oklahoma City Thunder are one of the stories of the season. And I'm not sure why the NBA just isn't pushing them at every chance that they get, because they are incredibly young and will be good for the next 6-7 years. But the Thunder will basically go a full month and a half with only 2 games on national television. And I don't count the NBA TV. Okay, I don't count that shit. They only have 2 games on ESPN or TNT. And this includes a 4-game stretch where they play the Knicks, the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Knicks again. Not a single one of those are on national TV. How is that even possible? Celtics Thunder could very easily be the finals matchup this upcoming postseason. How is that not only being on national television, but how is that not being just blasted everywhere? How are you not just hyping up this matchup? I think part of it is they're scared. Honestly, I think that they're scared to venture off the path that they know works. They're scared to talk about anybody but LeBron James or Steph Curry, despite the fact that their teams aren't very good. That's just the truth. They'd rather put the Lakers on primetime, watch them get blown out in embarrassing fashion, and then turn around and talk about, wow, this league fucking sucks. You see how little effort the Lakers had tonight? Man, this league is terrible. Oh, man, this league sucks. Like, they'd rather do that. And it's infuriating, because I promise you, any average viewer would love the Oklahoma City Thunder. They would love watching the Houston Rockets. They would love watching the Orlando Magic. They play such a fun brand of basketball, yet we don't get to see it. We don't get the exposure. The average fan wouldn't even know that, because they don't fucking talk about it on national television programs. They don't talk about these things. And if you're Silver, I mean, this is such a star-driven league, such a narrative-driven league. Why aren't you pushing your broadcasting companies to share this information more? I really don't understand it at all. Because I'll point you back to the stats at the beginning. The WNBA did incredible this year. Women's college basketball did incredible this year. Why? Because they had some great storylines. Obviously, you had Caitlin Clark, but you had Angel Reese. You had Juju Watkins at USC. I mean, there was just so many things for people to be interested in. And they honestly did a great job. Like, a lot of it was organic, obviously, and a lot of this stuff has to be organic. But there's way too many great players in the NBA, way too many great teams for this not to happen organically. You just have to let it happen. You have to give it space. And it has no space currently, because the space is filled up with Grandpap LeBron James and Peepaw Steph Curry. Give people time to move on. Let people know it's time to move on from Grandpap and Peepaw, and here's what you need to know. Because people will love it. People will love the Thunder. How could you not? Anyways, I know this video is going to be very long. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I know it's going to be a very long video. I apologize for that. But I feel passionate about these things. I fucking love the NBA. And again, I think it's been great this year. I really do. I've enjoyed it so much. I've watched more NBA basketball so far this season than I ever have. And I have changed my viewing experience, because a lot of the things I've talked about recently where, in years past, I used to make sure I was on my couch at 6:30, made sure I was home, made sure I had League Pass open so I could watch these games live. Now I just, around 9 p.m., I look at one of the early games that I found interesting, or a scorer that I found interesting, rewatch it on League Pass so I can skip through all the timeouts, watch it in 50 minutes, right? Watch another game after that, 50 minutes, maybe watch a game in the morning when I wake up, 50 minutes. I can get through 3 to 4 games in the time it takes to watch one. Anyways, man, let me know what you guys think. I'm so interested to hear from you guys. If you watch less basketball now than you have in years past, what's the reasoning for that? And how can the NBA fix it? What's a solution? And if the answer is just, I just don't care much anymore, that's completely and totally fair. I mean, there's plenty of people like that. There will always be people like that. But if you think that you could be, brought back by the NBA, what can they do? What is a solution that they can do? Leave a like, leave a reply, leave a comment. I love you guys so much, all right? Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away.